The world of Ready or Not has reached its boiling point. Suspects have never been more armed and dangerous, and there has never been more of a need for an upgraded arsenal. In this new update, there are 3 new weapons that have been added to the game, and in this video, we'll take a look at them all. But before we get to the guns, there have been some changes to weapon attachments. Finally, you can mount both a light and laser to your gun, and use all the rail space most of the rifles come with. Optics that are supposed to have variable zoom finally do, and they've added a Trigicon MRO paired with a magnifier. If you want the unparalleled 1x performance of a red dot, but with the option of magnification, this is a great choice. The first weapon is the Staccato P. Staccato is one of the largest and most prominent firearms companies today, but it wasn't always this way. Previously known as Science, Technology, Ingenuity, or STI, it was an American company founded in 1987. Their flagship product was a firearm known as a 2011. They are essentially 1911s designed to take double-stack magazines, which means that ammo capacity is doubled compared to the 1911. The grips are kept fairly slim, meaning the gun is still comfortable to hold. These grips are also interchangeable, meaning a shooter can buy grips to fit their hand and preference as well. For many years, these handguns were custom-made for competition shooters. The very light triggers, customization options, and magazine capacity made them a great option for that use. But as a combat weapon, they were not ideal. The magazines were very sensitive to dirt. Dropping one on the ground could mean that they would no longer feed properly and would need to be retuned by a gunsmith. The handguns themselves were also very finely tuned and typically needed to use specific ammo loads to run properly. At one point, the American Delta Force experimented with an STI 2011 chambered in .40 Smith & Wesson, but ultimately did not choose it, due to the magazines not being reliable enough for combat use. The competition market is a relatively small community, so in 2019, STI switched gears and changed their target market. Instead of selling exclusively to competition shooters, STI would target the law enforcement and personal defense market. They would launch a new line of duty-grade pistols under the name Staccato, and their new direction was most evident in their new slogan, "Built for Heroes." Their first handgun under this line, and the one seen in Ready or Not, is the Staccato P. This is a 2011 built for duty use. The most important innovation is actually not in the firearm itself, but in the magazines. They upgraded the magazines so that they could withstand the harsh conditions of duty use. And of course, it retained all the desirable features of the 2011. The 1911 ergonomics and controls, the incredibly light trigger and magazine capacity, and a rail and optic mount meant that the Staccato P was ready to be a modern duty pistol. In Ready or Not, the Staccato P is identical to its real counterpart. It holds 20 rounds of 9mm, more than most pistols in the game. An optic cut and rail for attachments means you'll be able to have the modern attachments you'll need and use the pistol in the dark. One attachment I've enjoyed using on the Staccato is the compensator. This is not an attachment I typically use in Ready or Not, as the recoil on most of the guns is manageable enough, and with a compensator, the muzzle flash is bigger. But since the Staccato's recoil is already quite low, adding a compensator makes the weapon shoot incredibly flat, which of course is realistic to real 2011s. It also makes the weapon look very cool. However, in-game, there is one downside to this handgun, especially if you use it as a secondary. Every time your character draws the pistol, the safety needs to be deactivated. It's a neat animation, but it's a long one. When your primary is out of ammo and you need to draw your handgun to finish a fight, this is a very long time to wait before being able to actually fire the weapon. Still, the Staccato P in Ready or Not has become one of my favorite handguns. I've enjoyed using it as a primary weapon on the smaller maps where suspects do not use body armor. 20 rounds and a handgun length makes for a short, maneuverable weapon with relatively high magazine size. Role-playing as a beat cop has never felt more refined. Moving in the complete opposite direction, we have the RTWC. This is a rifle chambered in the 6.5 Creedmoor round. Introduced in 2007, this is a bullet designed for long-range shooting. By all metrics, it is a direct upgrade to the 7.62x51 round. It's more accurate, has a greater terminal velocity, and recoils less. It does cost more than the 7.62x51 round, but for a large government organization, that shouldn't be a hurdle to adopting the round. It's very likely that 6.5 Creedmoor will be a mainstay in long-range shooting for years to come. A growing number of militaries and law enforcement agencies have begun to adopt the round, and firearms have either been converted or created for the bullet. One of these firearms is the Wilson Combat Recon Tactical Rifle. Wilson Combat is a company that does custom work on firearms and makes firearms of their own. One of these is the Recon Tactical Rifle. An AR-10 chambered in 6.5 Creedmoor, the rifle is meant to be a precision semi-auto rifle that can deliver rounds accurately at long distances. With a tuned trigger, compensator, and fluted barrel, this is a firearm meant for accuracy and precision. Interestingly, this rifle has a 16-inch barrel, somewhat short for a long-range rifle. In Ready or Not, the Recon Tactical Rifle is a formidable weapon. 20 rounds of 6.5 is more than enough for any suspect in the game. Even the most heavily armored suspects will only need 1 to 2 shots to take down. With some of the bigger maps in the game, this becomes incredibly useful. The rifle can take all the attachments you would want, including the new red dot magnifier combo. Putting this optic combo on the RTWC makes for an incredibly versatile setup. Having the red dot for close encounters is ideal, and for longer shots, the magnifier makes them easier. The only downside to this rifle is that it's fairly long. While 16 inches is somewhat short for a precision rifle, it's still longer than most of the other weapons in the game. Maneuvering it through tight spaces can be awkward. It's not a significant hindrance, but it is something to keep in mind when using the weapon. The RTWC also has taken the crown of being the loudest weapon in the game.
Above your head.
The RTWC is one of the best weapons in Ready or Not. It's hard-hitting, has great attachment selections, and reloads fast. For the harder levels, or any level really, this is a great option. Finally, we have the third weapon, the Glock 18C. Glock is perhaps the most renowned handgun company in the world. Their polymer frame striker-fired handguns can be found in the holsters of militaries, law enforcement agencies, and civilians all over the world. If someone is carrying a handgun, there's a good chance it's a Glock. But there is one specific Glock handgun that's far less common, the Glock 18 and Glock 18C. At first glance, they don't look very different from a Glock 17, but on the left side of the slide, there is a very distinct switch, not seen on any other Glock handgun. This switch changes the handgun from semi-auto to full auto. Firing at about 1200 rounds a minute, this Glock will annihilate anything within close range. For this reason, these are the only Glock models that are exclusively sold to military and law enforcement. First released in 1986, they were made for the Austrian counterterrorism unit EKO Cobra. The Glock 18 was the initial model, which is almost identical in function to a Glock 17 Gen 3 other than the selector switch. The Glock 18C includes cuts in the slide and the barrel. The cuts in the barrel are ports that vent gas upwards, reducing the recoil of the handgun. On a normal semi-auto Glock, these cuts are not necessary, but on the full auto Glock 18C, they are imperative to maintaining any semblance of recoil control. The usefulness of a full auto pistol in real life is questionable at best. Among all firearm types, handguns are arguably the most difficult type of modern firearm to shoot. Without a stock, firing a handgun in full auto accurately is incredibly challenging, and for counter-terror units who may need to operate among civilian bystanders, accuracy is of the utmost importance. Ready or Not's depiction of the Glock 18C is interesting. While the real one is usually seen with 33-round mags, the ones in Ready or Not are standard 17-round mags with extensions, bringing the total to 24 rounds of 9mm. Just like the real thing, it does have a ported barrel, which reduces recoil at the expense of a bigger muzzle flash. And of course, it has the full auto switch. It's super fun to mag dump suspects up close, but the practicality of this is limited. Any one of those stray rounds can hit a civilian, and it can be difficult to fire accurately on full auto. The best way to fire it in this manner is to shoot in bursts. However, when you need to make a precision shot, it's best to put the gun on semi-auto. It may sound like I don't like the gun very much, but I actually think this is one of the best sidearms in the game. No one says you need to put the Glock 18C on full auto at all. If you leave the gun on semi, it becomes a 9mm semi-auto handgun with low recoil and the highest magazine capacity of any of the handguns in the game. And just like its semi-auto relative, the Glock 18C can take lights and optics. As a secondary weapon, it's a great choice. Unlike the Staccato, the weapon can be fired right away when drawn. And with the many armored suspects in the game, having more rounds is very useful for ensuring these enemies stay down. It's not pretty, but it's incredibly effective. Just like a real Glock, the Glock 18C will get the job done. So, that's all the weapons in the Boiling Point DLC. I think they're all great additions to the game, and I'll be using them all a lot. And as for the DLC as a whole, I've been enjoying it a lot as well. The new maps are very challenging and have been a lot of fun. If you like this video, be sure to check out my previous video on the rifles of Ready or Not. And thank you for watching.